Hello and good afternoon. So very excited today that we have Caroline Kay talking to us about how to motivate and build high performing teams. Caroline has a wealth of experience from working in creative agencies and business development herself to building her own company and working with the startups and agencies as part of that. So Caroline, first of all, to introduce yourself properly, please tell us about Vincita and what you do and how you work with these teams.
Oh, Lucy, thanks so much for having me on today. It's great to be here. And yeah, I'm the founder of Vincita, and I help leaders achieve their business goals without their best people becoming burned out or worse, quitting. And I do this using the best practices in neuroscience, performance science, positive psychology, and cognitive behavior, all of it honed to achieve untapped potential in a really short time. And I think that's one of the most important things when you're in a startup world. You've got really, really big pressure to make it all happen as fast as possible. And so this is really about why I decided to build Vincita. It's all about creating that accelerator to get you to where you need to get to.
Amazing. And talk us through how that could work, because I'm sure that rings a lot of bells for a lot of our startup audience on here. None of us have time. None of us have lots of time to sit back and think about it. It's all about reaching the next goal, reaching the next point of funding, the next growth point. So how would that accelerator work?
Yeah, I think the biggest part of when you're in a startup is that it's all chaos, right? At the beginning, it's chaos. Everyone's doing all of the things, everyone's working their socks off, everyone's doing the classic roll up their sleeves. What do you need doing? Yeah, I'll muck in, I'll do that. And at a certain point, when you're reaching a stage of growth, you're going to need not everyone to be a jack of all trades, but you're going to need everyone really working focused in their core capabilities and core strengths and all working together as a team. So everyone having a very defined role in the business, playing to those strengths, working as best they can so that they can actually help you achieve your bigger vision and your goals, whether that's funding, whether that's customer acquisition, whatever stage of growth you are in, it's going to be about trying to hit those goals. And so with the accelerator, it's very much looking at what is it that is going to help your team to do that. And it's a real magical combination of both the mindset, which is about your emotional intelligence, being able to work together the most effectively, but also on top of that, it's your ability to not only play to your strengths, but actually enhance your strengths, constantly being able to be part of that customer acquisition, part of that building a pipeline, part of that investment strategy deck. Because in those early stages of your startup, that is what is most important. So actually, I really focus on sharing my skills and expertise in developing those sales and marketing specialities so that you can all play a very pivotal role in getting to where you need to get to.
Brilliant. And what's the sort of mindset do you think that works best and gets people to those goals?
Yeah, so one of the big things is that actually we all think that especially in the startup world that we're pretty much okay in terms of our mindset. We're good, and that's great. And that I always say that's a level of maintaining. You are at a point where you are doing the things that you know how to do. You're even stretching yourself probably a bit out of your comfort zone. You're being creative, you're coming up with problem solving skills and solutions. But it's actually when you need to push past that level and you need to actually go bigger and deeper into the unknown, and you need to start really combating the next thing that's thrown at you in terms of that work challenge, and step outside of your comfort zone and do something you've never done before. And that's where you need to start upgrading. And that's part of the work that I do with positive intelligence, is actually helping you get there and stretch what you think is possible. And instead of going into negative habits, and what we all tend to do is go sort of workaholic tendencies and maybe push ourselves to burnout. We're suddenly working all the hours and all the time. So I think if anyone in your team is saying, yeah, do more with less, you're just thinking, what? Do more? There's no room for more. There's no possibility of doing more. So actually we need to figure out, what is it that you're doing that's actually wasting your time, wasting your energy. And actually most of that is caused by internal sabotaging techniques, which is like you're stressing about things, you're overthinking things, you're not taking clear, focused, laser focused action, you are literally putting yourself in a negative spiral. And I think a lot of people hopefully listening can relate to that, how they've just sat there sort of unsure what to do next because the challenge just feels so big and so overwhelming.
Yeah, it's so true. And actually, this is one of the reasons that we started this conversation and led to this live, because actually that's what I did. I did use positive intelligence when I first started my business, because I was, very shy, not wanting to even post on Instagram, let alone LinkedIn, about what I wanted to do and my aspirations. And that it really helped me to sort of cut through a lot of that and to really focus. And that overworking, I think, as part of positive intelligence, you identify some of your traits, and that hyperachiever on the shoulder of, you've just got to do more, you've got to be attached to your computer. And I think that's something that I've definitely seen throughout my career. If I'm on my laptop, then I feel a lot more confident that I'm okay and I can keep going. Whereas actually that isn't the best way to be most efficient. And we're working and moving to a full 4-day week as part of scale up, because what we've noticed is actually we can be as effective by giving people that opportunity to get everything done and to be as efficient as possible and to cut out the stuff you don't need to do. And as managers, we should be helping people do that by saying, prioritizing that. But we also need other people to manage up, don't we, and say, this is how I prioritize. I know I'm very clear on my goals, so this is my priority for the week.
Yeah, you've touched on a really important part there, which is absolutely about having the clear goals, clear vision, everyone working to the same, final outcome, and making sure that along the way you're celebrating the wins, celebrating the failures, figuring out what have we learned today. And the biggest thing with positive intelligence that we talk about is finding the gift in the challenge. So a big thing about celebrating those failures and understanding, okay, well, so what did we learn? Okay, so a client said no. Great, we are one step closer to a yes, because that they've given us an objection that we're going to be able to overcome next time, just as one example. So it's really, really important, I think, from a leadership point of view, as you've done the work, it's about, first of all, knowing yourself. How do you perform at your best? How do you operate in the best possible way? So you can lead from the front and from behind, saying to your team, okay, these are the tools and techniques you need, so we can all do a 4-day week. That's something that's going to energize and motivate your team and get them really behind you. And you're really supporting them as well with all of the right tools to help them be self-sufficient, but also play a better role in the team. That's really, really key.
Yeah, I think that's so right. The gift, when you talk about the gift, it's definitely something that I've carried through from that learning. And we talked about losing a couple of clients at the beginning of the year because of budgetary constraints, and actually it was a shift for us to really think, okay, what do we learn from this, and what do we now know about how can we use that time better, but also what do we know about who are the right clients that can get the most value from what we're offering. And that has led to a shift in what we're doing as well. So it's really interesting. I think it definitely works. I'm an example of it working. I think that effectiveness as well, from giving people that freedom and opportunity to be very clear on goals. How do you work with teams? And so I know that just from our experience, we work with clients a lot on what are your OKRs. Let's work through what are your business goals, and therefore what are the marketing OKRs, and let's split that down into, okay, what do teams need to be doing per week, so that it's very clear and focused. Because a lot of what we do as advisors is try and actually take a lot of the extra work that marketing teams do and just help them focus so that they're achieving the goals that are set out, which will lead to the business goals. But that's always it's always a process. It's never something that just works. You can set OKRs, but how do you have any advice for us about how to help people to be making sure they're focusing on those? Because we all know startups, and there's always, but this opportunity or this, and this has happened, so we need to shift. Happens on a weekly basis.
Yeah, that ability to pivot and constantly shift and be ready for the change, and sometimes that can cause confusing priorities and goals, because you're thinking, okay, I thought we're all on this plan to do this, but actually we've had some feedback and now we're shifting everything over here, and that can sometimes cause a lot of confusion, and then that creates uncertainty, and then that stops people doing the work that they should be doing. So one of the things with my clients when they're coming in and talking to me, it's about, okay, well, how can we get everybody in the room and have really effective meetings? And one of the things to do those really effective meetings is actually for everyone to come into those meetings, know it's a safe space to actually be vulnerable and go 10% past what they feel comfortable talking about, to really share where they're not sure, what they don't understand, to ask the stupid question, and to be able to actually say to each other, okay, I don't know how to do that. Who does in this team? And somebody to go, yeah, I can help with that. That's actually something I really know how to do. Great. Well, do you know, if you could do that for me, I could pick this up. Brilliant. And so they're actually sharing responsibilities and tasks, which sounds something so simple, but lots of people come into those meetings and don't say anything. They don't share their opinion. They don't share what the problem is. They sit, they seem passive, they're listening, they're nodding, they're going away, and they have absolutely no idea what they're going to do when they get off that call. So that's been wasted time and effort. You want everybody in those meetings participating, holding each other to account, making sure we're all really clear on what we're doing. And if somebody needs support, it's really clear, and so everyone knows how to help that person to move past whatever it is, that the challenge that they're faced with that day. And I think that's one of the biggest things, is about not only having, if you like, the tools and techniques to do things, but actually a way of operating, sort of everybody coming in knowing that this is what I expect from you in this meeting, so that you can all get the best out of it and the best out of each other.
That's fantastic. And how, because I know from experience and thinking about our audience on here today, what advice can you give to help managers to encourage people to be more honest? Because it's often, if you're young and you're wanting to impress, and you're not wanting to say that you don't understand or say that you can't do something. We need to get over, and it's something everybody needs to do, but we all need to get over the fact that we want to tell everybody that we can do everything. Nobody can do everything. So let's start from that. And the sooner we're honest about it, the sooner we can get on and learn. But how are there sort of some tips to give to people about how to encourage people just to be more honest and to open it up?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the biggest things is leading from the front in this sense, which is, first of all, as the founder of the business, the CEO or the senior team, being open and being vulnerable yourself, that encourages trust, and for others to feel that they can also be open and vulnerable themselves. So sharing not only what you've got on your to-do list. You don't need to show up and say how brilliant you are. They know that you're the boss. You're there because you're brilliant and you've been able to take this big leap and start running your own company and doing all these amazing things. You want to go to that meeting and say what you need help with, what you're struggling with, and be really clear and transparent about that, and say who can help, and let them come forward and share with you how they can take some of that workload from you. The next part is obviously making sure that there's some healthy conflict in that meeting. Say, I believe this and I want you to challenge me. Am I right? Am I wrong? Ask them, give them an open opportunity to say, no, that's not the feedback I've heard, and I don't actually think that's the right way of going, and celebrate that. Go, oh, thank you so much for that. Okay, guys, what do we think about that? What should we do about it? Really get into a brainstorming session in these meetings, rather than just another business update. It's like, okay, we've just read off a report that everyone should have read before the meeting. That's not helpful. That's not good use of time. So one of the really fantastic, it's like I call it a power game when we get into the positive intelligence techniques, is something called the yes and. Do you remember this one, Lucy? So the yes and game is a really fantastic one, and that is about no idea is a bad idea. Getting people to come forward with, okay, let's choose a challenge that we've got at the moment, and let's fire some ideas around. And it can start with whatever idea someone says. You might not agree in full, but there will be 10% of that idea that they've had where you think, all right, there's a little bit of magic in that. I kind of agree with that. So just select that and say, okay, what I liked about that idea was, state what you liked about their idea and build on it. And I think it would be really good if we did X or Y. Continue around the circle. So everyone's had a chance to talk. Everyone's had a chance to throw an idea in the ring. Doesn't matter if it's a good or bad idea, but this actually creates that confidence to be speaking up, to be sharing ideas. And in all of those ideas, lots of them will never make the cutting table, but lots of them, you will find a brilliant idea in there that you didn't have before you started. And that's going to help all of you feel part of the solution. Everyone's going to be feel seen and heard. And most importantly, you're going to have a great idea to move forward with that you didn't have before. And that's the power of a great team.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And I've used that a lot. I think one of the ways it's worked so well is to give people confidence so that, if they put their head above the parapet and come up with the idea, you're not just knocking it down straight away,
Exactly.
which is awful. But also I've used that actually to create good relationships with clients, in the point of which, you're starting to talk about marketing, or with marketing teams that, talking about how we can get going. And it's a really good, I think actually it's just a lesson for life, to be honest, is not to say no and disagree with people, but to find that 10%. Tell me, how about, so one thing that we've talked about is not when you go into teams, it's not about identifying where they need to make new hires, but to restructuring the sort of skill set slightly and creating that high performance team with the team that are already sitting in there. And could you talk a little bit about how you do that? Because I think it's a really interesting and
absolutely.
much useful tool.
Well, a big part of it that I talk about, there's sort of three key pillars that I think to creating a high performance team. There's depth, there's time, and there's happiness. And they are so underrated. And the first one, the biggest one, is getting into what are the shared values of this team? Why is it that you joined in the first place? What excited you about this startup? And sometimes that can get lost in the day to day because you're just so busy doing, you're not realigned back to that vision. So actually, as the leader of the team, you have to be almost like a broken record in terms of what we're trying to do and where we're going. And for those individuals, it's getting really under the skin of, why they're there, why they're feeling really motivated, the bigger impact that they're going to have, so that you can get right under the skin of, and so what are the actions we're going to take today to get closer to that vision? And that's really pulling you out of the weeds of the constant doing, but getting into the bigger picture thinking. Okay, so what are the actions that are going to really make the big difference? What are the things that are going to get us one step further forward? And what are those sort of longer term projects? So a big part of this is getting into, I call it sort of the energy optimizing matrix, where you'll get into what is kind of using all of our, like, a lot of energy with very little return, versus actually this won't take me very long. It's something I can do really easily. So some of my natural gifts and ability, and it's going to have a massive reward. So these are like the quick wins that you need to be getting out the way. And what are the things that are going to take quite a bit of energy? It's quite a lot of focus, the deep work we need to do. Actually, it's a long-term game, and we need to be just chipping away at that. But that's something that requires a lot of thinking, creativity, and actually you need to set yourself some really clear time to be able to do that. And again, as a team, you've got the luxury, and it is a luxury because as a founder, you're normally doing everything yourself. You've been just managing to get everything done. Suddenly you've got a team and you want to know, where are they best suited to hit the ground running and do the work and help you move forward? So actually getting that from a bit of a sounding board piece back from them to say, okay, what are the quick wins for today, guys? And for them to be voicing again, okay, these are the things I'm going to do today that are quick wins. We're going to see big results. These are the bigger projects I need support from X or Y or Z. And really getting that sort of really clear what the plan is and how everybody is doing something that's going to achieve those quick wins. And you're going to keep seeing momentum, keep seeing results as you go through each week.
Amazing, I love that. And then is that something, do you structure it around sort of daily stand-ups, or how do people communicate their sort of quick what they're doing each day? Have you got any advice for that?
Yeah, that's a lovely one, actually. Those stand-ups that people do. And I think, but again, it comes down to the level of confidence and also a little bit about where you are as well. Because are you physically all in the same room in the agency, or you've got your team quite everyone's in different locations. We're working remotely, which is more and more the common trend now. So what are the best ways to do that? And I think it's structuring those meetings to have the best way to everybody has share of voice. Everybody has the ability to come forward and not feel like they have to always say something that is, I've done a big achievement today, or I can do this, because that becomes like blowing your own trumpet again. But actually, okay, what can we share that's going to help the business move forward? And it might be sharing just as much as a win, this is a problem that's actually holding us back from moving forward. Is there a quick way to
Yeah.
fix this, or do we have to put this into long-term planning? But if everybody comes and is open at the beginning, you've all kind of problem solved together, you've broken it down, and everybody's spoken up. And I think if everyone takes away the fear of having to say, you know, I haven't had a win this week because I'm stuck on this. And if you can move that feeling of stuckness and you can move that problem to one side, the next week they'll be coming with a win, because they'll be like, you know what, we cracked that, we did that, and I'm feeling really good about it. And the more we can celebrate the little wins along the way, the more momentum it picks up, the more confidence picks up, and everybody starts working together in a much better way because they're supporting each other while staying in their own lane and doing what they're best at the same time.
Oh yeah, that's great. That's sort of similar to this atomic habits idea, isn't it? Of splitting everything out and just looking at that. You know, what do I need to achieve each day to get to the bigger goal? Because the big goals can seem quite scary if you look at them like that. But if you can split that down into actual actionable tasks, and I suppose that goes back to, again, making it splitting it into tasks so it's very actionable in the management and advice versus superfluous and a bit confusing.
Yeah, and you don't want to get into the habit of everyone just telling you their to-do list as well. It's like, okay, we know you're on top of your game. We know that you understand what you need to do, but actually it's maybe getting everybody to really reevaluate their to-do list and think about what are the things that if you can't delegate it, because a lot of the time you're not in a position to delegate, but it might be really thinking, is that something that's critical right now? Is that something that's going to help us move the needle on our business objectives? Or is that another thankless task that we're just pushing through the motions? And so maybe it's raising it up and asking the question, is this important? Do we need to get this done? And just to have the confidence of somebody else saying, no, you're right, totally focus on that. Great, okay, everyone's just suddenly taken a load off their plate. And that's such a big thing, is getting rid of all that time wasting, energy wasting, where you're doing what you think you should do rather than actually what is going to help you build success in the business.
And that's interesting. One thing that we've talked quite a lot about in this series is the need for the right energy and you've talked about the right mindset, and that's so important. And what we've noticed is we're building marketing teams, both sort of in-house and for other clients, is that this sort of startup mentality and startup mindset isn't for everybody, and it's got to be something you love. You know, you've got to love the fact that things change and that you're going to be thinking on your feet, and that, you know, that dynamism is really exciting for some people, and I absolutely feed off it. But for other people, they like to have that plan in action. They like it to be more a part of a cog in a big machine. So what do you do? Have you got any advice for founders or managers that, you know, are working with people and you've worked with them on their mindset and you've worked with them on developing this, but they're still not really fitting? Because what we know is that somebody that has bad energy can also bring down a team quite quickly. What do you do at that stage where you feel that you've worked with them, but maybe they're not the right people, and maybe this isn't the right position for them?
Yeah, it's actually frightening, the statistic. I think it's 50% of hires are the wrong hires, and that's just sort of across the board. When you get into startup world, that statistic, that number is even higher. So, and that's one of the things I really want to change, is that it's not always about, for example, there will be, as you say, people that tend to feed off that kind of hustle culture, that idea of, you know, kind of working, doing all the things, juggling a million balls. They love it. There are others that like clear boundaries. They like to have a clear plan, and they very much have that sort of, I want to work and then I want to have my free time. And I think if we're all honest about it, all of us want to have a little bit of break from work to hobbies, etc. But there is a bigger tendency in others. And actually, this comes down to the way that we operate and the way that our psychology works. And part of positive intelligence is understanding, really, there are 10 different ways that we operate, and actually breaking down what are our top 3. And by doing, there's an assessment you can do through positive intelligence to understand not only how much time your mind is serving you versus sabotaging you, but getting into those 10. And they call it the saboteurs because they are the reasons that you are brilliant at what you do. They are absolutely the reasons you've achieved the success you've achieved. But you will get to a point where there's a tipping point where your biggest strength has become your biggest weakness. And actually, you might have been a huge high achiever. I imagine everyone in a startup is a high achiever. They love to get things done. They love efficiency. They love playing to their strengths. And they love to work hard and be seen for achieving results. But the biggest problem with people that work this way is they have workaholic tendencies. I can put my hand up to that. If I need to work through the night, I'll work through the night. The next day, you're so exhausted, you can't even think straight, get your best work done. Never mind, try and do something you've never done before, a big, big, overwhelming task. So part of this is not, whereas the opposite might be the controller, somebody who likes those boundaries, who likes things very specific. And that controlling person has actually been really good at being on time, on accurate, delivering projects to very tight timelines, critical paths, they nail it. But at the same time, once they go too far with that, they're not open to flexibility. They're not open to seeing new ways of new ideas and new approaches to things. They become very set in their thinking. So a lot of this is understanding the different personalities within your team, your organization. And there's no such thing as a bad personality or trait, but there are ways where it becomes that tipping point where it's actually going to be sabotaging your team and actually bringing out more negative emotions in the rest of your team. And like you said, that sort of negative cycle begins. So actually doing the work on everybody to change the way that they respond to really high pressure, big challenges, and instead of having their strengths sabotage them, actually have their strengths keep on building, is by doing this work of building on mental fitness. And that's why I'm so excited and 100% behind it, because I did the work myself of moving myself from high achiever to hyper achiever, where it all goes very bad, pulling myself back to doing my best work. And that's when, if you get everybody in your team, like I talked about before, doing the work that's most important to them, doing it aligned to their values, being able to stay on track in a healthy way that has well-being and balance is paramount, they're actually going to be able to perform so much better, and they're going to push through those ceilings that have otherwise, stopped us, become the negative spiral. And then how do you lose key members of your team who you spent so long finding and hiring? That's the biggest waste of time and money that you're going to have. So you chose them for all the right reasons, but their internal saboteurs are what's making that negative switch happen. And so there is the tools out there to help them change their thinking, expand the possibilities, and deliver against everything you thought they would when you first brought them in.
Yeah. Oh, it's so important, isn't it? We're coming to the end of our time. If you had sort of one piece of advice that you'd give to founders about how to get the best out of their team, what would it be?
The biggest advice I would give, that you can have all the strategies and plans in the world, but if your team does not have the right mindset to go past and above and beyond what they think is possible, you won't achieve breaking new ground and achieving the things that you're dreaming about doing. So invest in your team's well-being, their performance, and that starts with mindset. Positive intelligence is one of the best ways to do this. And when you're upgrading all of your team, when you're telling them you guys are superstars and I'm going to help you do this with more ease, less stress, and more joy, they're only going to thank you for it. And you're only going to thank yourself for taking this choice, because it is what helps all of the plans and ambitions come together, and it will help you build a thriving business.
Fantastic advice, thank you. And Caroline, where can people find you and find more of your advice?
You can follow me over on any of my social media handles. I'm very much active on LinkedIn and Instagram at Caroline K Co. And you can reach me on my website, which is www.carolinekay.co. And so I'd love to see you on there. And I hope to catch up with some of you after this. By all means, drop me a question, ask me anything about positive intelligence, and please take the test, understand how much your mindset is serving you versus sabotaging you, and then get involved in doing the work to really build that up and become everything you ever wanted to be.
Oh, thank you very much, Caroline. This has been amazing. Thank you.
I've really
Bye-bye.
enjoyed it. Thanks so much, Lucy. Bye.